So this is definitely going to be a very interesting versus video for your boy because we have to take Zenobia, who is kind of competing to be the new premium waifu, and we have to pit her up against the old reliable, the OG waifu in Jeanne. And it's actually kind of funny because like I like both of these servants a lot for their like waifu appeal and from a character perspective, but then they just both turn out to almost be the exact same thing. They're both AoE looping crit archers, except Zenobia is packing like a little bit of this special damage mod against kings, and Jeanne Archer, well, she just doesn't have any special damage mod. So in this video, we're going to be comparing the two because I know this is probably one that people are very curious about, because Jeanne Archer over here is a super valuable servant, especially now that we're in the arts meta, because once Castoria came out, people were scrambling to be like, what AoE art servants do I have that I can use for farming? If you already had Space Ishtar, you were kind of golden. If you had Berserker Musashi, you know, you're pretty golden there. But for those of us that don't have those servants, or you want to kind of adapt for different situations, you know, you're like, all right, well, Shiro Muramasa comes out, I gotta snag that guy. He's like premium AoE saber. And then Jeanne Archer was one of those people that you either did or did not have her, right? So then you'd run into a saber node and you're like, man, if I don't have Space Ishtar, if I don't have Berserker Musashi, or even now Kama, I mean, which unfortunately there are people like that because your boy's one of them, not for lack of trying, but you're just like, man, I really wish I had Jeanne Archer because she would be really good for this. And now Zenobia is kind of the answer to that, where she's now going to be a more, I don't want to say like accessible version than Jeanne Archer, because we all know how hard it is to pull 4 stars. I mean, you go into a banner going for the lower rarity servant, and you're like, you know, inevitably pull the 5-star when you like, whenever you don't want the 5-star, you know. 2 years in a row pulling Okita Alter, and still not a single copy on the boy Izo. You know, he's the 3-star, but somehow I have NP2 Okita Alter, so we all know that struggle. But in this video, we're going to be talking about is, you know, is she a proper replacement? Is she good enough to kind of take Jeanne Archer's place, or is there kind of still a reason to go for Jeanne Archer? The way that I'm kind of formatting these videos is, what if there were 2 banners out right now? Jeanne Archer's on banner 1, she's the only unit on raid up, and then on the second banner, Zenobia is the only unit on raid up. Which servant should you summon for? That's essentially how you should view this video. Now, if you have not already, make sure you hit that like and that subscribe button. Your boy is on that journey to 100k. It's going to be a long and arduous journey, but with your support, I know we can make it. You can also click that join button if you want to become a channel member. You know, you just feel so inclined to throw your extra support that way. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this video. Enough stalling with, you know, both of the baddie characters over here. Now, the first thing that we can look at is kind of a very similar situation to Jacques and Voyager when I talked about them yesterday. They both have different deck types, right? So you can see that Zenobia's deck is more conducive to her being a looping and crit archer servant, whereas Jeanne leans more into the looping still with the double arts cards, but because she has 2 buster cards, you know, she's leaning more to doing damage, whereas Zenobia is leaning more into like genning stars and looping her NP, as having the extra quick card will actually help her loop her NP if she's going to be critting on it. So already you have like kind of 2 different ways of gameplay. I do think since they're both supposed to be looping crit archers, Zenobia has the superior deck with 2 quick 2 arts, because you're really not concerned with the buster card, even though it's going to be bringing you like pretty decent damage if you're doing buster crits. You're probably not buffing them with buster crit people, like you're not bringing Merlin, you're not bringing Tomamovich to make use of that, so, you know, why even bother? But then we go ahead and look at their kits. And when you look at their kits, they have a lot of things that are very similar to one another. So they both are packing a 30% arts buff. They both have a method of survivability. Jeanne is packing the coup dodge skill, right? But it's essentially invincibility, and, you know, it's turn restricted. So I'm always going to refer to it as the coup dodge skill whenever it's hit based, but we all know that coup's dodge is just absolutely crazy, just 3 hits and doesn't have a turn restricted on it. Whereas Zenobia actually has a guts over here. Now, they both last for 3 turns, and the thing that you can kind of debate on is, which one do you think is better? Because guts really doesn't matter what your enemy does, because you're guaranteed to live as long as they don't have buff removal. But that's kind of the weakness for any survivability, is if the enemy has buff removal, you're kind of just screwed anyway whatsoever, unless you're like Yoreshkigal and you just hold on to your buffs. You're like, you're not taking my buffs away from me, right? So unless you're that, buff removal is like kind of the main enemy to survivability, but this is just more like it doesn't matter what happens, I'm just going to tank it anyway. Whereas this is like for 2 hits, no matter what happens, whether it be an NP, a massive crit, whatever, I'm covered for 2 attacks. And probably that's going to be the first attack is going to be an NP, and the second is just going to be some random offhand attack. Maybe it was a crit, maybe it wasn't. But so it's like, do you value being able to neg 2 hits, or do you just value being able to just face tank through everything, you know, proc your guts? It doesn't matter what they're doing, you know, you're gonna be absolutely fine. There is kind of a benefit, is that like this kind of can get negged by Pierce invincibility, whereas the guts you're still guaranteed to live. Like Jeanne, she doesn't have a guts anywhere else, so if they get past the invincibility, she just dies, whereas Zenobia is guaranteed to live. So you could chalk that up as like a dub for Zenobia, like a maybe minor dub. But a dub for Jeanne Archer is that she's going to be doing more damage because she has 3 different buffs multiplying into each other. You have the 30% arts buff, you have the 20% NP damage buff, and the 20% attack from her charisma. I would give her the point for the charisma, but Zenobia also is packing a charisma, and I think you're probably going to get more use out of this than you are going to be getting use out of this, because more than likely you're bringing 2 support type allies that really aren't going to be making the most out of getting, you know, an additional 20% attack buff, whereas like your supports really can use the critical damage resistance. It's going to help keep your supports alive. I think that is a little more valuable than giving them an attack buff. This is unless you're running like an offensive setup. If you're running a more offensive setup, then Jeanne's I could see you maybe having more of a case for, because now you're providing 40% attack to everybody, whereas Zenobia, like, if you're going to kill them in a few turns anyway, why does it matter that you're a bit more tanky, right? So it just kind of depends on what setup you're doing. But I think generally you're going to run into this being a bit more useful than this, but not to say this is bad. But anyway, back to the point of damage, Jeanne Archer, she's going to be doing more damage like most times out of 10, like 8 times out of 10, because Zenobia is only going to be out damaging Jeanne Archer when it comes to fighting kings. And when she gets that king buff, she does do a lot of damage. You know, I put up the calcs in the Zenobia video that when she gets that buff, she is doing a massive amount of damage. But outside of that, Jeanne Archer should be out damaging her by a decent bit of damage. So it just kind of is like wave 3s. Zenobia might start out damaging Jeanne Archer, but outside of that, Jeanne Archer is going to be kind of kinging it, you know, for the wave 1 and 2. Which, because Zenobia does so little damage, you know, I am actually concerned that sometimes she might not kill a second wave, because, you know, NP1 might not be enough for some scenarios. Whereas Jeanne Archer, because she at least has the different multiplying buffs, I don't have to worry about that as much. The second thing we could talk about is their NP batteries, because they have 2 different ways of going about just getting immediate NP. So Zenobia gets 20% every turn for 3 turns, so that's 20%, 40%, then 60% on turn 3. Technically, you're getting more, but Jeanne is getting 40% immediately. So it just kind of depends on what are you valuing more for your farming setups. Do you just need something with the box and what your CE has? Do you just need that immediate battery? Or do you need this 20% every single turn? Now, personally, if you have like a super scope or something, I think this is going to be absolutely fine. You know, I think it'll actually just be more conducive for farming and for challenge quests and stuff like that. Because then, you know, let's say you miss like your NP, you're at like 85%, boom, you just automatically charge it up. And you can do that every single node, as opposed to being like, I just kind of blew my load all on like wave 1 or like wave 3 or something, right? So I think it's a little bit better, but obviously like it's not like super cut and dry. Obviously there's scenarios where having the battery is going to be much better. Like if you need to do something immediately, like you're having a boss fight, or, you know, it's just a shorter wave that you need to clear, something like that, having the immediate battery to just get yourself going right there on that turn is very good. It also means you're not as reliant on having like a starting charge CE as like Zenobia is. Like Zenobia, you're going to need like something like a super scope or something if you're, you know, not using traditional Castoria setups and everything, which that kind of throws a wrench into the comparison as well. So you could also just say that like, well, because Castoria exists, this is better. Like it's going to be better for Castoria setups, because Castoria, if you didn't know, each one gives you 50%. So you might just be able to say like, well, doesn't matter that she has the better battery, because with Castoria, people like Zenobia with these skills are allowed to kind of shine a bit more. But outside of those scenarios, Jeanne Archer might be better. But you guys kind of see where I'm going with a lot of this. Like you got to stretch it a little bit to maybe make Jeanne Archer better. You're going to have to take out Castoria from the equation, which Castoria is obviously a big part of these equations. You can't really just take her out of it when she's the main art support type servant. But then finally we come to like their main secondary role, which is them being crit archers. And she's not only giving 10 stars every turn, but she has an immediate 20 stars right here, and guaranteed 50% crit damage up to 100% depending on overcharge that lasts for 3 turns. Jeanne, her crit damage is locked behind Waterside Battlefield, and it caps off at 50%. So it's like, even as a crit archer, I think Zenobia is going to be doing a far better job, because like, what, the best thing that Jeanne has to provide stars for herself is the 10 to maybe, if you're lucky, you can get the 30. Same thing with Zenobia getting to 100%. You might have to be a little lucky to get that, but it's like, bro, you know, she's not providing as many stars for herself as Zenobia is, because Zenobia has 2 ways to do that. And as an art servant, it is very crucial that you have a way to provide your own stars for yourself, because the arts card does not inherently gen stars, just as a buster card does not inherently gen NP. So Zenobia not only having those 2 quick cards, but then having 2 different skills to give her the crit stars, and having the free guaranteed crit damage starting at least 50% on her NP, I think makes her more conducive to being an arts crit archer over Jeanne Archer. And I just think overall, if these 2 are on banners together, or on 2 separate banners, I would tell people to summon for Zenobia, but with the caveat being that you should probably go for NP2, if not higher, for Zenobia, where Jeanne Archer, you're going to be pretty fine if you just get the 1. But as far as looking at their kits, I think Zenobia's kit is just built a lot better. I think she has just a much more like streamlined way of getting about what she wants, whereas Jeanne Archer is probably looking at needing a buff or 2 before she can kind of start competing again in a more modern sense. Now, don't get me wrong, Jeanne Archer still loops like an absolute dream. You know, when it comes to looping and farming, she's going to be absolutely fine. In fact, you could argue she's going to be a little better than Zenobia in farming, because Zenobia, you're actually going to need higher NP copies, because she hits like a wet paper towel if you don't have higher NP copies. So, you know, you can maybe give that to Jeanne Archer on that front, but, you know, if you have that little caveat of being able to go for NP2 or higher, then I would definitely recommend going for Zenobia over Jeanne Archer. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to think, not to think, but to say about this video, and who you guys think is better between the 2. Again, just to kind of clarify my thoughts, I think Zenobia has a better kit. I think she's better as an arts crit archer, because she has like 3 different ways to provide herself with stars. I think her crit buff is more free. And aside from maybe just like losing out on like just regular damage when she doesn't have her king buff up, you just go for like NP2 or something for Zenobia, and you're absolutely cooking with her. Whereas Jeanne Archer is kind of like, you pull her at NP1 and she kind of is like peaked there. We kind of need a buff for her NP, and maybe a buff on like this skill where she gets like 50% crit damage at baseline, and then if she's on water side, she can get another 50%. I think that'd be a really good way to go about building her. And then maybe just give her like 50% battery. Why not? Give her that little bit of an edge over Zenobia or something. Give her a 60% battery. Why not? Just screw it. Just have her have this battery but immediate, so you can be like, well, this one is 60% over time, so it's better for like harder content where bosses are sucking up your NP gauge. Or you have this one, which is 60% and it's immediate, right? Just have them be a little competitive. Try to build them in a little bit of a different way, because right now it just kind of seems like Zenobia is just like a direct upgrade when it comes to her stats and skills over Jeanne Archer, which is, I don't want to say a shame, because I think I'm leaning more to liking Zenobia more than Jeanne. I think I'm slowly moving into that camp, into the tan goddess camp. But, you know, just give Jeanne Archer a little buffs, and then we maybe can like talk about this in the future. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. It's been your boy. All the good stuff, like liking the video, commenting, subscribing. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.